Good afternoon, everybody. I'm very pleased to say that in the post I have 2 shoeboxes full of pottery donated by my friend Candice. So we'll go and have a look at what she sent. This piece of tin glazed ware is interesting. The inside's very clean. The outside's got some sandy residue. I don't know if it's maybe some thin mud. And I'm just going to clean it carefully with a toothbrush because you can see there's corresponding decoration appearing on it. So I'll just give it a quick clean. Tin glazed ware is notoriously fragile. That's about as much as I dare do. But it's revealed the decoration on the outside of the rim is very similar to what's inside. So a sort of diagonal design with across polychrome flowers and leaves. Altogether very nice. So you've got blue, green and orange glaze there, and these dimples are very characteristic of a tin glaze as well as losing chunks of glaze at the edge of the piece near the break. And this, I think, was part of a large bowl. Imagine a punch bowl, which would have taken punch and then you would have scooped a cupful or a mugful out of it. But it really is a lovely piece of tin glazed pottery, and I would think from the design it's going to be 18th century. Now how about this lovely piece of tin glazed ware? So it's a plate, no marks on the back, and you've got half a lady standing on some grass with some shrubbery. So what do you think? 18th century? No, sadly not. It's French faience, which is their word for tin glazed, and it's camper, which is spelt quimper but pronounced camper, I think, or kemper. And it's going to be early 20th century, maybe even as late as 1930s. So this is a Breton lady in Breton costume, and there would have been a corresponding plate in a pair with a Breton gentleman. I'll show you some pictures, but the palette and the style of the edging is absolutely typical of this French faience, which you do find imported in large numbers to the UK. But sadly not 18th century, but still coming up to 100 years old anyway. I forgot to add that this particular piece of pottery has a checkered history. It was found by another mudlarker, Flo Fines, who left it in the river, and then Candice found it later in another spot and sent it on to me. I'm not going to put it back in the river. I'm going to keep it for my reference collection. Right, here are the 2 oldest pieces that I've been sent, and it's a good tip really to turn over tiles, especially if they're rather orangey in colour, because you might get a nice surprise. So we have 2 Roman tiles with this roller stamped combing on them. This is a particularly nice example. So they were often box tiles or hollow tiles, in other words, and then this lovely decoration wouldn't be seen because they were hidden in the walls or under the floors, and warm air would rise through the box to heat your house. It's a Roman hypocaust tile, and the combing, beautiful as it is, would be absolutely hidden because it would be keying in to take the mortar, and this would be mortared up against the wall and placed in the building totally unseen. So yeah, these would be quite high status Roman buildings, because obviously only the more expensive buildings had the central heating, such as baths or villas. This probably dates to the late 1st century or the early 2nd century AD. So we're talking 19 or 1800 years ago that this would have been part of a rather nice building in Londinium, Roman London. Moving forward 1,000 years or more, this is a lovely selection of post-medieval redwares. These were made for hundreds of years with very few diagnostic features. They are normally very heavily, substantially made vessels, and they will be used for a range of industrial and domestic purposes, normally in the kitchen, for serving food, for cooking, for storage and industrial processes. Sometimes they are a little bit above the norm with a little bit of thumbed decoration on the handle, or beautifully done here, thumbed decoration purely for decoration on the side of the pot. That should actually be that way around. Very typical are these lines ribbing here. It's not really a diagnostic feature in terms of date. These were made for the 16th century right to the 19th century. An identical vessel to this, I'll show a photograph, was found in a late 18th century context in Suffolk. I suppose there's meant to be flowers, a floral thing, but the potter has made it with his thumbs and then a little pinky in the middle, which is rather nice. This one may be a bit earlier because I don't know if it was broken in the post or whether it was found broken. But it's got a very thick grey core, and that's indicative of a kiln where the temperature wasn't high enough to completely oxidize the pottery and make it red all the way through. So you get this grey core. That's probably an earlier feature, so this could be 16th century or maybe early 17th century. But I'm not going to stick it together because actually it's rather nice that it shows the manufacturing process there. Another reason for turning over shards of pottery. Look at that beautiful thumbing around the rim. You can see the size that this vessel would have been. Got a very shallow curve, so it would have been a substantial vessel. And I guess as well as being decorative, this would have helped when it was full of stew or full of water to lift it from the fire safely. Again, the potter has just thumbed around the edge. Thumbing around the base would normally be medieval, thumbing below the rim post-medieval, 16th to 18th century. But there's quite a variety of styles. I mean, it's glazed inside but not outside, and this is glazed both sides. Got a very plain rim, and that's got more of a rounded rim to it, but both very substantial. Made in the London area in various different places. When they excavated the kiln at Woolwich, they found a lot of this type of pottery made in the 17th and 18th century. And what a beautiful handle from a serving jug. The rim would have just gone above there. So nice that it's complete and beautifully ribbed for holding there. So this would come from a substantial jug. Again, post-medieval, red fabric. And this one too probably would have had another handle on the other side, I would guess, from a cauldron or a cooking pot. I've got it upside down. There we are. So that's the top there, and you can imagine the pot. Very nice. And finally, in redware, a pipkin spout. So just squeezed onto the vessel with a couple of finger marks there. And this would have been a free-footed vessel that sat in the fire or in the ashes and would cook liquid food in it. And again, this one 16th to 18th century. By the beginning of the 18th century, these were going out of fashion as cooking habits changed and people were baking more in ovens rather than using open fireplaces. So I guess this would probably die out about the beginning of the 18th century. Reasons for turning over pottery, part 3. So you have got some beautiful slipware. So this also is post-medieval redware, but it's livened up a bit by some trailed slip. So this would have been white clay that they've trailed, liquid clay that they've trailed on there, and then after glazing it gets this yellowish pattern to it, a yellowish colour I mean. Very simple pattern. This is probably borderware rather than metropolitan slipware. 17th or 18th century, and that's an open form, an open serving dish, so you could serve on the table there whatever you wanted to, dessert or main course. So again, a little variety of patterns there. That's got some sooting on it, so that must have been heated at one point as well. But very pleasing. I do like a bit of English slipware. So as well as red clay, you get vessels in the post-medieval period in white firing clay. These are probably borderware, an industry from the Surrey-Hampshire borders, which produced a lot of pots in red clay and white clay, which were sold to London and from there to the New World. So the classic pipkin spout, again the three-legged vessel. This has got a composite rim, so it's got an external lid seating on it. So the lid would fit over the top and rest on that little projection there. Not many lids are found actually, so it's often thought that a lot of the lids were either metal or probably more likely wood that they would put on them just to cover over so you could make a closed pot. This is a very interesting vessel. So this is not actually a pipkin because it goes straight onto the rim. It's probably a bed pan or maybe a frying pan. More likely to be a bed pan, I think. So it would have had a large round shape and used obviously in the bed to collect the urine and then emptied out with the heavy handle there. This is also borderware. But here's a piece of older stoneware. It's a German import and it's 16th century, so it's the base of an individual drinking jug. You can see vessels exactly like this being used in the famous painting by Bruegel, The Peasant's Wedding, and similar vessels were found on the Mary Rose, which was sunk in the 1540s. So these were made in their millions in Germany and exported widely all around Northern Europe. Two pieces of stoneware complete the collection. So this is Westerwald, so this is probably 18th century. You see the handle coming off the rim and then a large globular body like a bartman. So this is German stoneware with some cobalt decoration on it, and this could be 18th century liquid container. And then finally a bit of Victorian stoneware with some sprigged grapes, and this is going to be the lid of something, substantial vessel, and Victorian in age. So thank you Candace for a very, very nice collection of shards. I'm very happy and I will curate them and look after them very well. See you soon.